Hello and welcome to Digital Nibbles. I'm on the road here in San Francisco on a beautiful sunny/foggy day at the Structure Conference with Marten Mickos, who actually has been making some waves this morning with some pretty provocative comments around APIs. Marten, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Reuven. Happy to be on the show.
So let's jump into it. I know you've been sort of engaged in what I would describe as a battle for the sort of hearts and minds of the open cloud, and it seems to be a battle focused right now on a lot of API, and you're in a particularly interesting position because of your adoption of what I think many are describing as the de facto standard in cloud computing, the Amazon API. What are your thoughts on the space and sort of this sort of battle on who's more open?
It's a good question. So Eucalyptus was the first private cloud software platform in the world, and our researchers who built it back in 2007 immediately picked the Amazon API to follow. So we've followed it all since that time. We now have a partnership together with AWS where we continue to work on it. So we completely believe that the Amazon API, specifically EC2, has become the place where developers congregate. Applications get written, you learn how to build applications, everybody is there. In the same way as everybody were in the Linux distros 10 years ago. Now everybody, any young developer you find, they are on Amazon, they're developing in Amazon, deploying on Amazon. And that's why it's more than an API, it's an ecosystem that just is defining the cloud world.
It's interesting. The ecosystem, in a sense, Amazon by far is the most used in terms of the public cloud. And I think someone was mentioning some numbers in the sense that they represent something like 90% of the sort of overall public cloud revenue, and everybody else fights over the 10% that's left over. I don't know if those numbers are direct or specific, but it certainly is an interesting point of view. So what you guys have done essentially is said Amazon is the de facto, and we're going to be sort of the entry point from the private part of that equation. Is that the general idea? You're going to represent the other side of the spectrum?
Well, the way I explain it is that Amazon Web Services is like Starbucks. It's publicly available, you get as much coffee as you like, anytime you like, all over the world. We are makers of espresso machines. So when you are so addicted to coffee that you need to brew it at home and you love coffee, you have an espresso machine. In the same way, we enable you to build your own cloud within your firewall, in your own server room, data center, or hosted or co-located somewhere. But it's yours.
Okay.
It's your own stuff.
And your focus is on sort of the simplicity of installation. I think I was speaking to one of your guys in here at the conference. He was telling me that there's a real focus on ease of installation. Is that a big part of the problem in clouds right now? It's too complicated, or?
Well, even we can be accused of being too complicated, given our research background. But now usability is a high priority. We made it super easy to install the product. In 20 minutes, you can get your own private cloud up and running today, which wasn't possible before.
You recently had an announcement in regards to a new, I think it's a partnership, I'm not sure if I'm describing it right, with Amazon. Can you tell me a little more about that?
Yep, so we work closely with Amazon. There are two things we are doing. One, they help us further improve our API compatibility with them. And the second is customers who need both cloud and on-premise infrastructure, we go to them together and present our offerings together.
What are your comments in terms of the actual sort of, I guess it would be described as there's some ambiguity around sort of licensing around APIs and the whether or not it even matters if an API is truly open or available. I'm not sure it can even be copyrighted. Does that even matter in this type of context?
We have done this since 2007 on our own. We're fully comfortable with how we did it. We released all of that as free and open source code, so we made it available to the whole world. I don't think there's anything more open than that. So, yes, I think that's...
It's almost like a way that others sort of use it as, we need to create something new and justify the let's create a new open standard for the sake of creating something that's new and different. I don't know.
Some people think that standards can be created by the vendors. Others realize that standards is what the consumers or customers adopt. And we've seen it before with all kinds of standards, that the de facto standards that the customers choose always win. Sometimes there's a de jure standard that a standards body creates, and that also works, but you can never you can never instruct customers, or you can never force them. They make up their own minds, and they vote with their feet.
Yeah, the whole realm of du jour software standards seems a little out of place, given I think du jour standards make a lot of sense for something like USB or various hardware standards that requires significant financial investment.
Yeah.
But software is an iterative process that involves innovation, and it's literally evolving on a daily basis. And I don't know if you can plan innovation several years out. I don't know.
Well, Reuven, you know it because you created cloud computing before anybody even knew what it meant, and you saw the evolutionary steps. You saw Amazon come out with their offering. So you've seen how that, exactly as you say, it's stepwise, it's iterative, and then when it gains broad traction, it just is a standard, and then it's deal done.
Yeah, it certainly seems to be the right way to go. I admit, actually, in the early days, I also had some trouble in terms of adopting the Amazon API. I actually kind of went against the grain a little bit and did things, in hindsight, that I probably shouldn't have. Like, I think one thing that I learned is I should probably follow the money, and by doing it my own way and not following the money was, I think, a hindrance to our success. And if I could do one thing differently, I think I would have actually probably aligned myself more closely with the Amazon activities.
Like they sometimes say, my karma ran over your dogma.
Yeah.
But
hindsight's 20/20.
It is.
Yeah, it all worked out. But
yes, it worked out very well for you.
So what else is going on? What's the future hold?
I think a dimension that isn't spoken much about is the whole explosion in the mobile space, the connected devices, and how that will drive new applications and new cloud deployments. So many times when we talk cloud, we start thinking about migrating the old applications. I think we'll be so busy deploying new ones that we won't have time to migrate many old ones to the new. And I'm not seeing enough of vendors building the software to really make it easy to build mobile applications, deploy them on planetary scale quickly.
I had a conversation last week in New York with a CIO of a major U.S. defense contractor, and it was an ironic conversation in the sense that he was telling me that there's no way that they will ever use public cloud, is what he told me. Yet, on the other hand, he actually is a public cloud to the U.S. government. Yeah. So it's almost like he contradicted himself in the sense that he's telling me one thing and then doing or providing the context or the ability for someone else to do exactly what he says he can't.
Yeah. But many people said, we will never put our customer data in a public service.
Yeah.
Now everybody's using Salesforce.com and Sugar CRM.
Yeah.
And people said, I will never take my money out of my mattress. Well, now the safest place for your money is not in your mattress, it's in the bank.
Well, it depends on the bank. I'm not sure I put it in a Greek bank, but I agree. There's lots of analogies we can use. It's better to focus on the things you're good at rather than to focus on the things that are non-core to your business. I think we can all agree.
Yes, stay true to your passions.
Yes, stick with what you know. The other thing that I think I'm hearing and seeing at this conference, cloud has kind of become almost just generally accepted. It's the way software is built and deployed now. And what's interesting about this conference is you're starting to hear about more what you can do with that than how you build it, in a sense. What does that mean for you as being kind of a core building block?
Well, it's a typical technology adoption life cycle that Jeffrey Moore described in the book Crossing the Chasm. So it starts slow, and then suddenly you get into this bell curve, the thick part of it, and you have enormous growth. We are not at that tipping point yet, but we can see it coming now, exactly for the reasons you say. People talk about the utility now, not how it was built. It becoming commonplace. The man in the street will know what cloud is, roughly speaking. Yeah. And so I think we will get there. At the same time, there's a risk of overheating, and we'll have a bubble, and many vendors will think they will grow enormously, and then they actually won't.
So it's been definitely an interesting time in our marketplace, and you've been through the ringer a few times with your previous company, and it's really interesting to see how open source has become so pervasive. One of the things that I've heard lately is as we move to a cloud-based environment, the source code becomes less important than the data. What are your thoughts?
I think we go through phases where we that change over time, meaning source code became important 10, 15 years ago, and it still is. But now, in addition to that, data is important. In addition to that, APIs are important. So it's sort of sedimenting on top of each other. So open source, the source code and it being open is no less important, but there are other important things as well, which we didn't see back then because we didn't have the massive number of devices and the massive number of applications that we have today.
And that's probably a major driver of cloud computing. This is this idea that anything and everything that can essentially be connected to the network or the internet will be.
Yes, exactly. And how do you then deal with when you have so many, you can have hundreds of pieces of software that need to interact. The only way to do it is through APIs, and you will also have control in terms of data that you collect. And that's what Tim O'Reilly has said many times, that data is the new Intel inside.
Yeah, I wrote a post on this a while back where I described data as being kind of the new oil that sort of powers our actual information age. And what's interesting...
Yes, and also with its negative side effects.
Yeah.
You know, you can have data spill like you have oil spill.
Exactly. Yeah, and whether it's a hack or just, you know, a mistake. You know, what's interesting, though, in regards to data is almost a useless commodity until it's actually changed into actionable information. And the opportunities often, I think, are in that sort of transformation, whether it's big data or the analytical aspects of being able to understand all that data that's out there, and again, kind of transforming it into usable information. How does the infrastructure and such as your software, you know, sort of apply to that?
Well, I think long term, all computers, all software in the world will ultimately be there to serve the brains of human beings and present to the brains data and information the brains can make use of. So you're absolutely right. That's where we go from data to information to knowledge to insight, and we think it's the data that is evolving. It's sort of true, but it actually is trying to figure out how to present it to the brains, because our brains are genetically ready. The DNA is stable. Our brains formed tens of thousands of years ago, and they're not evolving that much. But therefore, we need to make the computer systems work such that we can suck in the information and knowledge faster into our brains, make decisions, and that's how the whole society revolves.
Well, I actually had a recent conversation where we were describing the sort of difference between traditional computing, the desktop-centric past, where the desktop was more of an appliance that sat underneath your desk, where it wasn't actually a personal computer. A personal computer has become more what you'd see in a mobile phone, or you know, and
look here at my Lumia. It has all my life, all my context in this little device in my hands.
Exactly, and there's this sort of just transition away from the appliance of computing to the, as you said, what it can do for you as a human, the humanization of computing almost.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting concept. Also things like what's that Google?
The
sunglasses up, there's stuff like that. It's just crazy. It's going to be amazing to see what kind of opportunities that kind of technology opens.
We thought we had seen remarkable changes in technology, but we will see in the future even more remarkable changes and advances.
Definitely. So you're here at Structure. What do you think of the conference so far?
This is one of the best cloud conferences in the world, meaning that the vendors and key people of the vendors are here. There are many good customers as well, but it's a very good place to check out other vendors, partner with them, see where people are, where the state of the industry, you know, how far we've come. And there are many people who come here and take this knowledge out to wherever, to their industries, to their countries, to their locations where they are. So it is trend setting for cloud computing.
Yeah, I found the same. I think that in terms of content, I haven't heard too much in terms of revolutionary, epiphanies or anything. But what I like about this conference is the ability to meet and see those people you typically only interact with on Twitter or online. It's
and you can see 100 of them here, or 200.
Yeah,
really
all in one place.
Very intense over a few days, and that's why the presentations are great, but the real value is between the presentations and out in the lunch area. And
Well, Marten, it's been a pleasure. Where can our listeners learn more about your software and
I would welcome them to www.eucalyptus.com, and if they want to follow me on Twitter, my Twitter handle is Marten Mickos. MartenMickos.
Great. Well, it's been a pleasure as always. Thank you, and I'd love to have you on the show again sometime.
I'd be delighted to come. Thanks, Reuven.
Okay.